These are the 10 worst movies of the year so far. At number 10 is Argyle, about this author who writes spy stories, but it turns out some of the stories seem to be really similar to things happening in real life, so she gets involved in all these real life spy mysteries now. This movie is just incredibly stupid, and it is purposely stupid, like that's the style of humor they're going for, but honestly, it just becomes insufferable for me. Pretty much the last hour of this movie is just a new plot twist every 5 minutes, it feels like, and each one is dumber than the last. It's a film that really just missed the mark in my opinion. At number 9, I have Lift. This was a Netflix original that released very early on in this year about Kevin Hart and his heist crew. If you've never heard of it, I really don't blame you. This thing just flew under the radar because it was so unbelievably generic and forgettable. It's one of those movies that you feel like you've watched 100 times before. I'm pretty sure they just trained AI on old heist movies and threw them all into this one. It's so generic. At number 8 is the Garfield movie. There are a lot of problems with this movie. One of my main one is the voice acting. They went for this just super star-studded celebrity cast approach rather than voice actors, and it honestly results in some of the voice acting being so hard to listen to because it's just honestly annoying in this movie. Like Chris Pratt just talking as himself as Garfield again. I'm so sick of him getting these voice acting roles. Please someone put him in something funny and charismatic like a Guardians movie again, rather than all this just bland stuff he's been in lately. Hannah Waddingham I really like. Luckily Jinx is a small role in this character. Whatever voice she's trying to do for that character I could not stand. I'm honestly kind of convinced that this movie was just some generic kids film plot that was going around as a script for probably a decade, and now they just picked it up and attached the Garfield characters to it, because this really barely feels like a Garfield movie besides the fact that you're watching a big orange cat and they're just trying to make whatever they could for the cheapest price possible and throw in some sick product placement like the Tinder and Bumble ads in this kids movie. Like, what are we doing? At number 7 is Madam Web. I know it's beating a dead horse at this point. I'm gonna keep it short because I feel like I've talked about this movie way more than I ever want to. We all know this is just a super boring movie. I've said it before, it doesn't even feel like a superhero movie. For some reason we decided the coolest aspect of the film, which would be having a bunch of different Spider-Women all in this one movie, we weren't actually going to put in the film. We're only going to see it at the very end through a vision for like 5 seconds. Just such an incredibly dumb decision. Dakota Johnson already isn't on my list of like best actors of all time. I think she phones it in a lot of roles, and this one especially, she is literally sleepwalking through half of this film. I know it's easy to throw around that this is the worst movie of all time, or especially the year, and if you're wondering why it's only at this point on the list for me, I honestly do think there's some redeeming quality. I think the cinematography is actually okay. Like if you just watch the film, it doesn't look that bad visually. It's just everything else that's bad, like when characters talk and the editing. At number 6, everybody welcome Netflix back, because another one of their originals is on this list. This time it's Trigger Warning. Honestly, one of these days I'm gonna make a list not including Netflix originals because they're just too easy to put on this list because they're so terrible. I don't know why I tricked myself into thinking, hey, a Jessica Alba action movie, how bad can it really be, and watch this, but it was a big mistake. I honestly almost fell asleep in this movie, and I never fall asleep watching things. It is just, again, the most bland, boring, predictable thing you've ever seen in your life. Her father suddenly dies, so she moves home, and then she gets like involved with all this gang stuff. After about 15 minutes into this movie, you can exactly predict pretty much every scene that's gonna come after and how this movie ends. Nothing is shocking, and it plays it all off like it's the biggest reveal ever. And I really like Jessica Alba. I was hoping she could save this movie, but I'm sorry, she's not good in it. I don't blame her. She was given a bad script, but it's just so bad. At number 5 is Despicable Me 4. I am not cooling on this movie whatsoever. I think this is an absolute atrocity of a film, especially because I think there's lots of likable Despicable Me movies. Particularly the first one is a really great and just classic kids film in my opinion at this point. This movie literally has no reason to exist, and you can feel that in the movie itself. Like you can just tell the writers had no clue what to do with any of these characters. There's barely a story happening whatsoever. The only reason this thing exists is because they know anything with the Despicable Me or Minions name is going to make close to $1 billion at the box office, and they can sell a ton of toys of these mega minions, which also serve absolutely no purpose in the movie, honestly. Like they are barely in this thing for more than like 2 seconds. Honestly gets to a point where it's even hard to critique certain parts of this movie because it's just so much nothingness. Like Gru has nothing to do in this movie. He's going on a random side quest for a badger in the middle of this thing. Pharrell's double life song, the Who Will Gru Be Today thing, is honestly the greatest part about this movie. And just to cheer me up after talking about all these bad movies, can we get a chain of all the lyrics in the comments below? 4 is Borderlands. Whether you played the games or not, you've at least seen the games before. You know they have a very unique visual and humor style. Whether you like either of those things, that's really up to you, because a lot of people don't. But the games were so definitive in what they were, and they were not afraid to have their own personality. This movie has absolutely no respect for that. We are not trying to do anything similar to the games. We rated it PG-13 when all of those were M. No one made an effort to make this look cool visually or in the style of the games. It honestly should have been an animated project in the first place. The cast is so random, and I'm not someone that's nitpicky about the ages of characters. Like I don't really care if you make someone that's like 25 or 30. If you make them 45 or whatever, it doesn't really make it that big of a difference in my mind. But what I do have a problem with is that this cast has no chemistry together. All these actors were just in this for a paycheck, and I cannot blame them. Like Cate Blanchett, one of the best actresses of all time, is just terrible in this movie. At number 3 is Rebel Moon Part 2, but don't be fooled by that Part 2 because it's essentially the same exact movie as Part 1. I swear we rehash so many of the same things, setting up more stuff. There's no big payoff or conclusion in this. Zack Snyder has no idea how to make a single interesting character. Like, there is no reason to care about anyone in this movie. The only backstory you get is literally them sitting around and telling each other just exposition. I actually like some slow-mo usage, but in this movie it's just way too much and kills a lot of the momentum of some action scenes that probably could be cool otherwise. It literally just takes all the cool elements from like Star Wars and Dune and somehow makes them dull and uninteresting. And yes, everybody knows this is pitched as a Star Wars movie. No surprise why they turned it down. Look, Netflix is back at number 2 with Atlas, with Jennifer Lopez, who, I'm sorry, she cannot act for her life. This thing is terrible, and some of her acting is literally just cringe-inducing. It's that bad. This is essentially an AI film that's kind of trying to say that AI is bad, but at the same time is having Jennifer Lopez become friends with and trust this AI, so I really don't know what they're trying to say here, and I'm pretty sure the movie was also written by AI. I don't know how you can make like a Titanfall-esque mech action movie this just boring, but you somehow manage to do it with this movie. I'm very impressed, Netflix. Let me know your 3 least favorite movies of the year so far, and make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. But to no one's surprise, I don't think it's going to be changing anytime soon. It's Megamind versus the Doom Syndicate, one of the worst, laziest sequels of all time. For some reason they decided instead of making a true sequel to a very beloved film in the first Megamind, they're just going to make this thing with none of the original cast, cut the budget on the animation so it somehow looks 10 years older than the first Megamind movie. He introduced the Doom Syndicate, which is just some of the most uninteresting characters of all time by people that I swear probably never voice acted before this role. I'm so glad that in their effort to cut every corner possible and make the cheapest possible product instead of an actual movie, it absolutely backfired in their face, and everybody can agree this thing is an absolute disaster.